Okay, so, all right, here we go. Let's see, we got some announcements. Welcome, everybody, to the Town Board meeting of Tuesday, April 9th, 2019. And we start off with some announcements. Mulch and compost sale. I assume we still have some. Time to order your mulch and compost at the Newcastle Recycling Center. Call 914-238-8091 for any questions and for the times. Okay, Ivy, you ready?
Sure.
Hashtag trash tag challenge. Join the Beautification Advisory Board by accepting the hashtag trash tag challenge to clean up our community this April. Hashtag trash tag is a global movement that is sweeping social media. The idea is simple. Choose a street or neighborhood, snap a photo, a before photo, clean up and leave your bags for curbside collection. Post photos of your efforts on social using hashtag trash tag Newcastle to inspire others to do the same. We got to add Newcastle to that. Tag your it. And choose a friendly rival, neighborhood, sports team, and challenge them to see who can collect more trash. At the end of April, the winning team who collected and posted a photo with the most bags will be announced here. Stay tuned. Not sure where here is, but that's okay.
It's on the Town of Newcastle's Facebook page.
Got it. And you can pick up plastic bags all month at Town Hall, the Recycling Center, and hardware stores in both Chappaqua and Millwood. And you could start before Cleanup Day, which is April 27th. Join the challenge today. Okay, and now Supervisor report. Let's see. What are we going to talk about? Downtown Chappaqua Infrastructure and Streetscape Project. Let's see, we're currently working from Town Hall to the Shell Station on the Town Hall side. We've installed new curbing, footings, and electrical conduits for the new decorative light poles, and they are now grading and preparing for the pouring of the new sidewalks. We're also working from the post office to Susan Lawrence on the Susan Lawrence side of the street. They also dug trenches by Pizza Station for the sitting wall that will be installed. As far as the decorative lights, there are some that have been installed along Bell School. There will be a total of 57 decorative lights installed. The bricks for the accent strips along the granite curbs have arrived, and they'll be installed in the near future. Is that correct? They'll be installed in the near future. And we've also installed the foundations for the pedestrian beacons, which is for pedestrian crossing along South Greeley. And that is it. As I mentioned several months ago, we issued an RFP to update our zoning so it's consistent with the 2017 Comprehensive Plan, which calls for new and vibrant mix of retail and residential uses within the hamlets. We have completed our interviews and hope to finalize our decision in the near future. Newcastle basketball court and playground. Construction of Newcastle's new playground and basketball court behind Town Hall is currently scheduled to start in September. We're hoping to start it sooner. The basketball court and the expanded inclusive playground are expected to take about 3 months to complete. And we're also creating additional parking in front of Town Hall to offset the loss of parking in the back. What else do we got? Let's talk about the trash tag challenge. And that's it for now. On to Town Administrator's report with Jill Shapiro.
Thank you. 2019 town and county taxes have been mailed. If you, as opposed to your bank, are responsible to pay your property taxes and you have not yet received your tax bill, please call the tax office at 238-4773. The taxes are due without penalty by Tuesday, April 30th, and the tax office will be open that day on the 30th from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Our assessor, Josh Herman, is having appointments for homeowners. Grievance day is Tuesday, June 18th, and as is our practice every year, the assessor will be meeting with homeowners in advance of grievance day to answer any questions or discuss their assessments on the following dates. Tuesday is actually starting tonight through May 21st. So let's see, it's April 9th, the 16th, the 30th, May 7th, the 14th, and the 21st from 4:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. And then on Saturday, June 8th, from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Call the assessor's office at 238-4722 to make an appointment. Mike Martis internship opportunities are available at the Millwood Water Treatment Plant. These are two internships summer internships for college engineering students who are residents of Newcastle or Pleasantville and have completed their sophomore year of college. They're $1,800 apiece, and if you want further information, please contact John Young, who's our plant manager at the Millwood Water Treatment Plant at 914-944-0036. And last but not least, New York State DOT is going to be hosting an open house for the Empire State Trail, the on-road segment of the North County Trail, next Tuesday, April 16th, from 6:30 to 8 at the Mount Pleasant Public Library, 350 Bedford Road in Pleasantville. It's an open house. People can just walk in and out. They've got 3 different stations of poster boards, and they'll be explaining what their proposed improvements are to the trail. Attendees will have an opportunity to learn more about the project, and the public is encouraged to drop in at any point in time during the open house. They have comment cards. You can speak, take and speak to somebody individually, or just leave your comment cards. But it's really important. It's all very long-awaited improvements along North County Trailway, which runs through Millwood, and we're really thrilled that the state has taken an interest in this, and really excited to see the improvements that both the state and the county have planned for the trail. So thank you.
Thank you. Public comments, new business? Okay, so nobody? So move along.
Good evening. My name's Warren Gottlieb. I live at 8 Plymouth Road in Chappaqua. And you may recall I appeared before you about a year ago, I think almost to the day, underscoring the alarming, relentless increase in airport noise and associated environmental concerns emanating from Westchester County Airport that's affecting Newcastle residents, and to respectfully demand that the town board take meaningful, unmistakable, and swift action to address the situation. When I first came before you a year ago, you may not recall this, but I was somewhat hesitant to appear in front of you because we are all members of this wonderful community, and I am profoundly grateful to be a part of it. My wife and I have spent nearly 14 years of our lives in Newcastle raising our family, and this town means something to us. And I also appreciate that public service, particularly in this day and age, is often a very thankless job. It is for these reasons that I'm not big on complaining publicly or simply pointing out problems. I really much prefer to either be silent or be part of the solution. Every community faces its share of issues, ones that have been around for years, and ones that catch them off guard like this one for one reason or another. The communities that thrive, however, are the ones that are led by people who face problems head-on, honestly, and with relentless, consistent, and undivided loyalty to their constituents year in and year out. This typically requires putting aside partisan politics and aspirations beyond Newcastle government, even in an election year. So with that as a predicate, I'd like to tell you that I'm no longer hesitant to appear in front of you on this issue. And as much as it pains me to say it, and I hope nobody takes it personally because I don't mean it that way, I feel as though the town board has been giving constituents lip service for a year, and enough is enough on this. Residents are really fed up with the board playing three-card Monte with them as they watch the destruction of their quality of life and their property values. I mean, unlike communities that we are being asked to be lumped with in dealing with this problem, people who moved to Newcastle, they didn't move to this condition. This condition moved to them. The people who purchased their homes here bought here because they wanted a community that did not have the condition that they now have over their heads. And now they find that their electeds at the county, in both parties, by the way, have sold them out and continue to do so. Now, some of you may think that I'm being partisan raising this with you. I'm here to tell you, think again. I blame former county executive Robert Astorino. I blame our current county legislator, Mike Kaplowitz. And I blame our current county executive, George Latimer. I don't believe they're bad people, but I believe that their policies and/or inaction on this issue have all hurt our community. The problem is, they now seem to be getting help, intentionally or not intentionally, from our town board in doing the job on us, because the town board is either unwilling or unable to come together in earnest and demand responsiveness from our electeds. This may sound harsh. I don't think I'm being harsh. I encourage every resident to watch the recent town board meeting at which Mike Kaplowitz and a representative from George Latimer's office attended. I've got to tell you guys, it was the most stunning and outrageous insult to the good people of this town that I've seen in 14 years here. After last year's meeting in this very room with our county executive, George Latimer, and with Mike Kaplowitz, 3 public meetings, endless public outcry, for them to come here like they did on that issue was really a disgrace. And I got kind of the sense in watching it that this was being stood for. These are the people who are supposed to be helping us on this issue. This isn't a new problem. They've known about this for quite some time. We praise them when they do the right thing, but ultimately they're not attacking the big part of the problem, which is the noise pollution and the environmental issue that is coming over most of our many residents' heads, 60 to 90 seconds at a crack. Yes, County Executive George Latimer stopped expansion for now, and I was the first one to praise him for doing this, and I urge people to have a letter sent on behalf of the town praising him for doing the right thing. The problem is, he unfortunately seems to have gotten the message that his job is done. No, it's not. He hasn't even really gotten started yet, and I don't think enough pressure is being applied there. Some questions in this regard. Where is our county executive on noise reduction, other than window dressing and press releases designed to create the false impression that something is being done? Where is he on the Newcastle Advisory Committee's recommendations from last August? Have they been communicated to him directly outside of an RFP process that, after all of our complaining, we seem to have been left out of until we started kicking and screaming? Where is the report that the aviation law expert we spoke to, Peter Kirsch, told us was necessary to have any hope of tackling the problem in earnest, because it was necessary to formulate an intelligent ask of the county? Why can't our county executive, as operator of the airport, bring together federal electeds and administrators on this issue, as they seem so capable of doing on many other occasions? And most importantly, why are you not all standing up for us together and pressing him for genuine relief? With respect to Mike Kaplowitz, who I like personally and I have voted for in the past, by my count, he's got 8 months left. But there seemed to be almost a gleeful sense when he was here that he's checking out for the remainder of his term. I say this with all due respect. Are you kidding me? If I'm not mistaken, not only did he sign many of the multi-decade leases with the fractional carriers that created this horror show, he apparently didn't even tell our town board until years after the fact that we had a right to have a seat on the airport advisory board. How could he have done that to us? How could he deny us the basic opportunity to protect our community from the condition that is now literally overhead and in our backyards every single day? Our town board should be demanding that he spend his last 8 months, and they can demand this respectfully, but that he spend his last 8 months doing everything he can to start fixing this mess. This has hurt the town terribly, and I get the feeling that he's kind of just putting his head in the sand at this point. A good start to showing everybody that you're serious about dealing with this issue would be for each of you to stop campaigning or supporting any politician that does not publicly, affirmatively pledge to work sincerely to stop the Westchester County Airport noise and environmental problem in Newcastle. I think it is in poor taste and very disrespectful to the town to see photo opportunities of our elected officials with those who have not done right by our town on this issue, and frankly some others that we can discuss another day. I suspect I'm not alone on this. Make no mistake, I understand and appreciate the complexity of the problem the community is facing on this issue. This is one of the reasons that, Although I've served on the Airport Advisory Committee, I am not in favor of the committee approach to this issue. I think it's a punt. The committee is made up of lay people, such as myself. All of them are very well-intentioned, but ultimately, this is of a magnitude that has to be addressed by the town board, with one unified voice and using its sway with county and federal electeds to start the process of getting residents genuine relief. 8 months ago, in August, there was a memo circulated to the entire town board telling them what Peter Kirsch said needed to be done to formulate an intelligent ask. And that was to have an expert pulled in that was loyal only to Newcastle, that would give us the truth as to why our residents are now experiencing this. This has not yet been done. In discussing the matter with fellow residents, many have expressed surprise and disappointment at the lack of urgency and focus of the town board in addressing this matter, particularly given the other challenges affecting property values in the hamlet. They cannot believe that after a year, there has been no meaningful response to what all sides of the political spectrum agree is a very harmful and unacceptable situation. Frankly, neither can I. As I've said before, the town board has two primary macro-level functions: promote the safety and welfare of residents and protect property values. With respect to the airport, this is still not being done. I believe you are not adequately responding to the dangers posed, and I believe that as residents again encounter the consequences of this circumstance during the upcoming outdoor months, they will want to know, again, why the town board hasn't done and isn't doing more. They are 100% right. Respectfully, it's been a year. I don't know what the hesitancy is to addressing the problem head-on and in a full-throated way, but the hesitancy is hurting your constituents. If the source of the hesitancy is that we're all lay people, I understand that. That's what the committee is dealing with, and why they, chased their tail for quite some time. That is why the committee also recommended 8 months ago to work with the nation's leading aviation law expert to get you an expert to come in to give you the data necessary to help you formulate an intelligent ask of your electeds. What are you waiting for? We need this to be able to ask the county exactly what we need them to do to fix the problem. If the source of the hesitancy is that you are not comfortable confronting county and federal electeds in your own party, respectfully, that's not an excuse. The good people of this town come first, and they deserve your undivided loyalty. That is what local government is all about. And finally, if the source of the hesitancy is that you believe that our electeds at the county and federal level aren't willing to act in earnest, then it is high time that you level with your friends and neighbors. They deserve the truth on this one in a big way. In closing, I ask you to recognize that one of the ways that Newcastle draws people and keeps people further north than towns like Scarsdale is the peace and tranquility and quality of life that our town offers. We tell people it's worth the extra 15, 20 minutes on the train. Our county electeds have taken a wrecking ball to that attribute. And if you don't act now, it's going to be gone forever. This is about as nonpartisan as it gets. This is striking right at the heart of our town. The planes are not Democrat planes, they're not Republican planes, they're not independent planes, they're just planes. And the good people being hurt underneath those planes don't have R's or D's or I's painted on their roofs. They are your friends. They are your neighbors. They are simply trying to preserve the essential nature of the precious piece of the world that they call their homes. They need their leaders to do right by them on this. That's why they put all of you in these seats. And they deserve your diligence and undivided loyalty on this issue. Please, I'm asking you for the second year in a row, give it to them.
Does anybody care to respond? I'll respond. So,
Okay, go ahead.
Warren, I feel I couldn't agree with you more that this is an issue of absolute importance to everyone in this town, and it's certainly a nonpartisan issue. I don't know why anyone would suggest that it would be a partisan issue. I think you have had and continue to have the full support of everyone on this board in terms of working towards a solution. So, I'm not going to try to unpack everything you said, but I will tell you this. Within the last week, Jeremy Sland and I took a meeting with Rob Fleischer, who's the head of both the Airport Advisory Committee in this town, as well as sits on the Airport Advisory Board. And I spoke at the Airport Advisory Board meeting. I don't know if you knew, you weren't there.
No, I knew about it.
So,
glad
in
about
any case, Jeremy and I took a meeting last week with Rob Fleischer, and the message that we delivered to him, which has been, I think, the consistent message that the board has been bringing forward, which is really that we don't want to go to the county and to our federal elected officials with complaints. We want to go with solutions. And so what we've been asking of the local Airport Advisory Committee is to come to us with actionable items so that we can continue to move forward. So in that spirit, we sat down with Rob last week. We hashed out an agenda for what the meeting that we are pushing to have between the county executive, Mike Kaplowitz, and members of this town board and the Airport Advisory Committee would be. We put together an agenda that includes following up on the financials, the monthly reports, and the investments, which is a series of information that's been requested by the Airport Advisory Board. We also want to talk about restructuring the landing fees so that the landing fees over at HPN are not significantly less than those of Teterboro and other local airports. And then lastly, we want to follow up with the request for the RFP and the master plan. So we, back in October, wrote a memo to, you're nodding, so you're familiar with it. We wrote a memo to the county executive asking that the RFP addendum to the master plan include the analysis that you alluded to that from Peter Kirsch. So as you'll recall, Rob and Jeremy and I were all in that meeting with Peter Kirsch, and we have been requesting since that time that the addendum to the RFP include a scope of work that would enable the county to bring in a Peter Kirsch, not necessarily him, because of course that's, kind of flies in the face of government procurement rules, but someone like him who would be able to advise the county and to actually review and dig into the data. So those are the 3 agenda items that we were able to come up with. Again, I think they're actionable, I think they're solutionable, and so when we sit down with the county executive and with Mike Kaplowitz, our county legislator, we'll have an agenda to move forward with. And that's what we've been requesting, I think, all along, is to make sure that the asks are not complaints, but that they're tangible. So, kudos to Rob Fleischer for sitting down with us and to coming up with that agenda.
Well, I would say a couple things in response. First of all, although, I defer to, I don't know if I necessarily agree with Rob, that this is something, just based upon the advice that we got last August, that this is something that needs to go in the RFP. And I have 2 concerns with that. Number one is that if you will recall, the reason why that letter was written in October, I believe, was because an RFP was being circulated and we weren't being given a copy. The request for RFP, we weren't being given a copy. And that was after the town had sent letters basically saying, we want to be on notice of everything that was going on.
And the town board's memo,
Right,
letter
and I
back
appreciate
alluded
that.
to that.
But the
in
problem
neighbor
is
policy.
that to me raises a sensitivity that I have with being lumped into just an RFP that's going to be submitted with, to somebody that I'm concerned we may not be getting a completely objective and Newcastle-focused answer, which is just what is happening in Newcastle.
Well, that's just a piece of it, if you
That's
listen to
just
what I...
that's just a
right.
piece of it, but
If you listen to what Ivy said, that was just a piece of
that's just a
the
piece of it.
conversation.
But how can you articulate what the problem is if you do not have somebody who is trained in this field to tell you what is happening? The data that's coming in that Rob is looking at the airport, we have to have somebody
Did
who's...
Mr. Kirsch,
I think you're
Mr. Kirsch not...
misunderstanding. What we've been requesting is to bring in that kind of expert, and the RFP is the procurement vehicle under which we believe we would best be able to
But that's part of the
accomplish that.
master plan, correct? That would be part of a supplemental master plan. Okay, so that's something that the
And
county is
again,
doing
not
together.
our call. We can make recommendations, but, how that expert gets brought in by the county is not actually.
I know,
up to
but
us.
wasn't one of the things that Peter Kirsch said, make sure that that person
But
is
Warren,
objective?
if there's going to be a master plan, there's going to have to be a seeker process. And if the person comes in to provide the underlying analytics, so in theory, as part of the RFP, they bring in a person, there's going to be some description of what the expectation is to understand. In that process, the public will have a comment period which they must answer. So once you kind of get a baseline data, because what you're talking about and what I think Rob's frustration is the data right now is uninterpretable. It's basically, you need an expert in order
That's
to be
right.
able to interpret it. So what they're looking for
Actually, he's
is-
kind of making himself into an expert. I mean, in
No,
the
I
absence
understand,
of-
but it's uninterpretable, all right? No one can really draw and feel confident in their conclusions. It needs an expert. And so if the county were to include this as part of a baseline analysis for current conditions to determine what the impacts are going to be for whatever the master plan is, positive, negative, neutral, so on and so forth, there will need to be a secret process. And in that secret process, you'll be able to provide the baseline data, you'll be able to understand it, the person will be available for questioning at public meetings, and then subsequent questions, even if you don't know exactly what it means, subsequent questions can be asked, which then get answered in the draft environmental impact statement.
But just because we can make comments doesn't mean that the person that interprets.
Do you want to talk about the draft environmental
Well,
impact
listen,
statement?
I think the point we're missing is I think we're hearing two different things. What I'm hearing from you is it's all about Newcastle.
Right.
You see, and some of the comments that we're hearing now was more about Westchester, the airport in general and how it affects all of Westchester. And this is something I've said a million times. 2 years ago, and you could talk about elections too, because 4 years ago, this was not even an issue at the election, right? 2 years ago, it started becoming an issue, and now it's probably going to become a huge issue. And I'm only saying that because, this is a new problem for Newcastle. It's not a new problem for Rybrook, and it's not a new problem for all these other towns that bought houses near the airport. This is a new problem for Newcastle, and maybe not everybody agrees with that, but there's a heck of a lot of people in this community that can swear to
But the guidance that we got from Peter Kirsch, right, wasn't that to not go it alone, but to work with
Well,
other
that's
And that's
correct.
why you and I
That's a good-
approached George Latimer in the first place, as
I know,
opposed
but
to
we
trying
need
to do this.
I
on
understand, but what
your
I'm
own.
talking about, the data that I want to see personally is what's going on here with Newcastle. And I've had this problem with other people also, where I've attended meetings with people, and I've actually said, listen, in all due respect, our problem's different than your problem. In all due respect, you've always been near the airport. We have, this is a new problem for us. We need to figure out what's happening there. We could all talk about this runway 16, and that's very simply, simple to say, but we need to figure out what the heck has happened here in Newcastle over the last 2 years. Now, we could all speculate it's because of all the leases that were approved with the private jets and the charter jets and these other things, but that's fine. But we need to know the data so that when we go to the county, we have an understanding, and if we get a specific request. I think that's where we're missing I think that's what your point is.
We need
about
to know what's
Newcastle, just
going on from
Newcastle.
somebody who has an unquestionable, undeniable loyalty to us. Even if and that may mean that the county has somebody else through its RFP process that they get. The reason why George Latimer, I think, was suggested is because we think the county should have to pay for this, because it's gonna be about $75,000.
Exactly, that's all. We were trying to get them to use the airport money for it. But we need to figure what the heck is going on here in Newcastle. Because it is definitely affecting people's lives here in Newcastle, and it did not affect them 2 or 3 years ago. It's a new problem, and it's a big problem.
I mean, I can tell you that it affects our neighborhood. I know a lot of people in town that it affects, and, I can't tell you what it's like when you're in your home that you've lived in, for, over a long period of time, and, the house shakes every 90 seconds.
And it's not
Okay?
affecting everybody, by the way.
It's-
It's not affecting everybody, and that's the problem. That's part of the problem, is that this problem is only affecting the people that are under that flight path. And other people are just going about their normal activities on Sundays and not realizing it's a big problem.
Right, and part of what's gonna happen is, I don't think it's been, we haven't gotten to the point yet where it started to really affect real estate sales, but, and it started to affect, we talked about informal meetings with with the assessor. That's the next thing that's gonna happen here, okay? I mean, there are enough problems that we have with the local real estate market. This is this is gonna be destructive. And I just think that, you can't expect people to kind of just be quiet about it. I don't post a lot of the complaints I have about the noise, because I've been told that there were people who used to sit on the airport advisory board who were threatening to basically target those properties and make them unsellable by opening their mouths. That's a problem. Yeah, well, you can laugh, but
I'm
it's
not
outrageous.
laughing. I remember when you came in and asked to have the expert, and I like data. And I feel that all getting to the truth was for it. In fact, I was kind of shot down for kind of like saying, yeah, it's an okay thing. $75,000 is a big nut.
It is.
Okay, it's a big nut. I do not see, I think the question that, I do not see why having an appropriate description of what an expert analysis of the impacted communities, and there's 7 of them, because it's the 7 communities with the noise monitors, of the current baseline and what's driving the change, historic, whether it's asked for 3 years back, 5 years back, whatever it happens to be, that's driving the change in the perceived noise and the increase in complaints, and have them answer that question, and then include as part of the final analysis any kind of master plan impacts to noise levels within those 7 communities. I don't see what the problem of having
I hear-
that
I
I
hear
think the
your-
difference,
that's
Hala,
borne by the entire county, not by
is
Newcastle.
that in a secret process, like you see any secret process that comes in, say a developer comes in, they have their own experts, we always get our own experts, because what they're saying on a global basis that may work for them may not work for us. And we need our own experts to make sure that our specific issues are being appropriately
But that would
looked
be
at,
done on the
and that,
county level.
I'm still talking, and that, no, I don't think so, because I think the issues that are going
Do you
on
want
at the
to, are you
airport.
proposing that we spend $75,000 hiring
No,
an
can I
expert?
finish? The issues that are going on in Rybrook and Harrison and Portchester are very different than from the issues here, and we need somebody who's analyzing here. And no, I 100% think the county should be picking it up.
Right, and
And,
if we, and I would even.
I think we're all saying the same thing.
And even if what somebody did is did a baseline analysis that another expert could then respond to, that would be way cheaper than doing the initial analysis that would cost $75,000.
My problem is with the county is just, it's a question of loyalty, and also frankly, looking at how they've dealt with us on the past on this. I don't think they are to be trusted.
I do think they are giving us lip service to some extent. I mean, Latimer came in with his whole good neighbor policy, and I have not seen him following that at all, where he said we're gonna be involved in everything, and we haven't been getting documents, and we haven't been
On
consulted.
the airport issue or on other issues?
On the airport issues specifically,
Uh-huh.
and I think he's really been lax, and he's just been paying lip service to it. I agree, and I think we do have to push them even more.
Well, I would just say, a little bit defense of him, he was handed a mess, and he had a lot of cleaning up to do with the master plan and everything, and there was no public outreach, so I think he's doing the best he can. There's a lot of federal issues that are involved. This is not a problem that's gonna, go away overnight. And let's face it, there's also a lot of business interests. If you're the county executive of Westchester, and I'm not defending him, believe me, if you're the county executive of Westchester, you gotta understand that the airport serves a very big purpose too. So there's a lot of interest here. But the bottom line is, I think we need to focus on our interests, and our interest is what the heck has happened over the last couple of years that is causing this huge problem. And we don't have an answer, and we can't advocate for the necessary change without having that answer. And I don't know who's gonna pay for it, but somebody's gotta pay for it, and we gotta move ahead. I agree with you. I mean, I'm not, because it's a problem, and we're asking them to pay for it, and they're not responding. We're asking for a meeting, we're not getting response. We gotta do something.
I mean, those towns that are directly, those towns that are directly around that airport, I believe they get help from the county based upon how close they are to the airport. I believe they get some benefit, they
I
get
don't-
something back from the county, given how close they are to the airport. No, they do, from their revenues.
So, one of the issues I think that he probably faced, when I say he, Latimer faces is, let's say somehow flight plan, or pardon me, the flight pattern, or for whatever it's 16 or not, it shifts a little bit to the west, or it shifts a little bit to the east. Someone else bears that burden, and he represents everybody, right? So then instead of just hearing from us, kind of like when people who lived off of 117 were upset with Chapel Crossing, they're called NIMBY. When people who live near the Sunshine Home, they're NIMBY. If you want to be NIMBY and go at this alone, I think the reaction is not going to be a good one, because who's Newcastle to complain when other people have to deal with it? Granted, the argument will be, it wasn't there before, and now we're getting a piece, but well, you know what? It's fine, everyone could get their fair share, whatever that fair share should mean. Could be a response. It could be that Newcastle doesn't deserve anything, but I can tell you, this is where I disagree. If we go out and say it's just about us, we're gonna be NIMBY Newcastle, and we'll get zero done.
No, I don't think
Zero
we should
done.
say it's
Well,
about us,
just
but we should
hold on,
know
let
what
me
the
finish
answer
up.
is ourselves.
Well, so I think we don't go at it alone, and taking a step backwards. and Rob made a good point, this wasn't an issue 4 years ago, and 2 years ago it started to percolate. And now it's a full-born issue. And I live not too far from you, so I see them coming over, I hear them coming over, and you look up, you're outside playing baseball or just outside, whatever, it's like, whoo, and I wish it was that quick, it's not that quick. But when it came to us, as you noted correctly, we didn't have a seat on the county level. We have Robert Fleischer there now, and for the advisory board. We have our own local board. As Ivy just mentioned, we discussed some concrete issues, whether you agree with them in their entirety or not. For that matter, I don't know whether or not you spoke to him before coming in.
No, I don't know.
Right, but one would think that when you're coming in to speak to us about it, not that you have to speak to him, he's the person who has the most contact in his capacity, in his position, that you would say, well, listen, before I go into the town board, it would have been relevant to know, we just had a conversation last week to see how we can push this forward, see what specific things can be done and information that is needed.
Why
Well,
weren't
to
all
that
five,
end,
why
if-
weren't
Hold on,
why
hold
weren't
on.
all 5 time board members at
Yeah,
that
if
meeting?
Rob Fleischer
Excuse-
is our representative on the airport advisory board, the fact that he contacted 2 town board members to speak to them personally and not speak to the entire board is kind of unacceptable.
I speak to residents personally all the time.
But it doesn't
No.
matter,
Well,
we
if he
appointed
reached
him
out to-
as on a board,
The
and he
reason that
should
he
have
reached out to me is that I
contacted all of us,
spoke
and
before
it's
the
time
airport
for an
advisory
advisory
board.
By the way-
and I wanna bring him in
Follow
and
up
talk
with
to him
me.
about
I mean,
that.
I think it's okay, to be
We've
honest with
been
you.
at those meetings too,
I think it's
and
okay.
it's a little
Part of the frustration,
unacceptable,
part of the
I think.
frustration that me and Lisa may have, I'm actually not that frustrated because I have meetings like that all the time, and I used to always get attacked
I know
for
you
it.
do.
I used to always get attacked for it. So for me, it's just like pointing it out because, all right.
So to continue,
we're
so.
just trying to get to a
right.
solution as quickly as
So-
possible.
so-
But
It's
Rob
all
should have
trying
come to the whole board. He
And I
should
think,
have.
and I think he
And
intends
I'm
to.
gonna
I don't want
call
to
him
speak
out
on
on
his
that.
behalf,
He
but I
should
think
have
he
come to the
intends
entire
to.
board. That's unacceptable.
Okay, anyway, so, we
'Cause
were in
appointed
the,
him.
we were
It's
in the
different
meeting with
than
Kirsch.
having a conversation with him.
He certainly didn't say hire him, that was not what he said.
No,
to
not
do.
him. He said
No,
an
but
expert
let
would
me,
do it.
right, so let me continue. We created the local advisory committee, we put on committee, pardon me. We have someone that was elected, we talk about non-politics, I don't know, I actually don't know what Rob Fleischer's political party is.
Nobody does.
But the point is that he was appointed to it. If you may remember, and I don't know if you do, and I want to go back to it, and Ivy and I have been discussing this as well, I wrote a letter. And I'm sorry to bore everyone, but I think it's pertinent. I wrote a letter to 33 individuals, North Castle, White Plains, Pound Ridge, Briarcliff Manor, and other municipalities, saying to them, irrespective of your party affiliation, I think it was 33 in total, dear fellow legislators, I think you helped me at the time try to get all the emails. I reach out to you as both a concerned Newcastle town councilman and homeowner residing close to the Westchester County Airport. Like all of you, I am troubled over the potential adverse impacts that the enacted Westchester County Airport Draft Master Plan and privatization may have on our neighbors, community members, and constituents. Clearly, development of the airport is not a Newcastle issue, hence my reference to non-NIMBY, but a regional one that affects all of us in Westchester County. While it is always a balancing act involving economics, environmental, health, job safety, and other factors, all of us will live with the decisions of our county executive and legislature. I respectfully submit that it's critical that we make all our voices heard, not as individual local legislators or municipalities, but as a group of concerned leaders united as one. Now, I won't go into the whole thing, but I'm happy to
When was that
send
letter
to-
from?
So I sent this letter out back in August of 17, and we actually are now discussing going and find out who the new legislators are, to resubmit it, because guess how many people responded to me? How many legislators responded? Zero. Not
So
one response.
What are you expecting from that group now?
Well, first of all, I don't know who's sitting there, but just as we now are more
Mike
impacted.
Kaplowitz was then there?
We
now?
just as now, okay, well, we have to take certain steps, right? We can't, you said before, which actually irked me, as you can tell, you come here saying it's not politics, but then you say, asking me, really, because I'm a registered Democrat, as is Ivy, as is Hala, whether or not we're afraid to confront.
are
As
we.
were Lisa and Rob.
But thanks, Jeremy.
Whether we're afraid to
Make it
confront
political.
our political, some people, same party in, would it be Congress on the county level. I mean, no, why would you even think that that would be an issue?
Because I can't understand why they're not listening to you, Jeremy.
Why? Because we are one of many voices, right? And we have to advocate, and we have to continue to advocate. But we're one of many voices. And unfortunately, in the real world, someone doesn't always win and someone doesn't always lose, and sometimes there's a compromise in the middle, right? But it's not a matter of not listening. Do we like what they're saying? I don't know. I'm gonna rephrase that. I shouldn't say I don't know. I'm unequivocally no, we don't like what they're saying. But it's not for a lack of fear to confront them, or fear to ask questions, or fear to say you're wrong, or fear to demand more. Not remotely. Not remotely. That has nothing to do with this. That's not even part of the analysis.
Look, I think they've burnt a lot of trust on
That may
both
be
sides of
true.
the aisle
That
with
may
this
be
town.
very true.
And I think that, I'm not
That may be
saying
very
that we
true.
should go it alone in terms of how we try and get them to change what the condition is. I think we have to go it alone to have an independent understanding of what has changed. Because I don't trust the county to give us a fair answer on that question.
So if enough of us,
Does the
if
airport
enough of us
advisory-
come
I
together,
think-
right?
I hear what you're saying, look, I totally agree in getting data, okay? I agree in understanding in an evidence-based fashion what's changed in the past few years, and what the actual, in an evidence-based fashion, the proposed master plan, whatever it may be with the various scenarios, is actually gonna have as an impact to certain areas. I'm all for that. But I feel like it's a little premature, the outrage is a little premature. I think.
What side of town do you live on,
Let me
Holly?
finish. I think that.
It's quite timely.
But no, it's timely, but I think that if the next actionable step, which is what I'm hearing is going to happen, is that we need to follow up on the RFP to ensure that the expert, with the parameters for the request of what we want that expert to do in writing, and to sort of ask for a resolution within 6 weeks, or to hear back before anything is issued. I think that is something that we can definitely do.
Well, and if I may,
I
I
just
I
don't
want
think
to come
there's
back
been
to.
an urgency on
I-
this.
I do want to come back to my original point, which was just, I think we are all in agreement about the seriousness of this issue, and you have the board's full support. You can hear disagreements about the way to tackle that issue, but everyone up here is fully committed to figuring out a solution. And that is why, at Lisa's suggestion, we put together the Airport Advisory Committee, and we've empowered you all to make recommendations to us. And so, I don't know if what you're saying today and the recommendation to have a town-specific consultant comes from you personally or from the committee itself. I think maybe a next step for us would be to have a joint meeting between our board and that committee, and to hear from you all once again, what are the steps that you are asking us to take at this point? Because we're ready to take them.
I actually
But we
think
do
the
need
committee
your
is a
guidance
punt,
and
and I
want your
think,
guidance
the
on that.
committee, frankly, I gotta tell you, I think a committee structure for this type of problem, given the importance to the town and the sophistication necessary to figure out what to do, and I mean no disrespect to anybody on this community, including committee, including myself, or their diligence, to expect that the committee itself is going to come up without any resources, okay, without any expertise to tell you what is going on over their
Well,
heads.
I mean,
When-
can you
Financial
figure
demands,
out
are
if
you
that
asking for us,
recommendation about a
should we
consultant?
disband it, or why did you bring this issue up before? I mean, what's the,
I'll tell you why, because we couldn't get anything, and something was better than nothing, and it became very clear very
couldn't
quickly.
get anything, meaning that we were just ignoring you and we didn't want to do anything? What do you mean by
Yeah.
we could, that's
I felt,
that's you,
yeah.
that's what you
I
feel
felt
that way,
like
or
this was
is that
being
true?
ignored. Listen, Jeremy, the letter with respect to the RFP was sent when, in October, to the county, correct? It's now being revisited again, it's now April. There are many families in this town who are gonna have their ability to enjoy their homes destroyed again this summer. I know that timetable you may think that you're being aggressive enough with that timetable. I don't think you are. I don't think that's fair to people. I think they want some
And
relief.
Warren, what you're not aware of, though, is that since that letter was sent in October, I've got an email trail every month of emailing about this particular issue and trying to find out the status. The RFP addendum has not yet been released. It has not been updated. It is not for lack of work and lack of trying, but that is a county issue. And so what we can do is we can push and we can ask and we can prod. And we can do other things too.
Well, then
If
don't
you
do it on
come to
email,
us
do it
with-
publicly, because that's what you did when you wanted to change with respect to expansion, and that was done. And eventually, your elected responded.
Okay.
But if you're just sending,
It's not just about grandstanding. I mean, really, this is an issue.
it's not
that was
grandstanding,
sincere.
they're not
Ask the
doing it,
question,
Ivy, they're
then
sitting
ask
on
the
it.
question. You want to not do it public, by all means, you have every right to be here, but ask the question, and come in and ask the question, what have you done, as opposed to you have not done, you have not done, you have not done, because that's not very productive either. You have not done. You know, maybe you can do this
I don't-
differently, here's what we need you to do, you know, this is a specific ask we need you to ask, and, you know, let me finish. And I'm not equipped to answer those questions, I'm saying from the point of the committee, if that's your position, I'm not equipped to do that, I don't have the answers, I don't know what to ask, then come and say, I don't know what to ask, this isn't working, it's not something that's gonna be very fruitful. But nonetheless, outside of that, there's still been asks on our part, there's still been movement forward on our part. And instead of just attacking, come in and say, what have you done, where has this been, what's going on, what is the status, what is the update?
Did you think the representative from County Executive Latimer's office gave you a satisfactory answer as to
Viva
where
Meyer,
this
who
was
is a
sitting?
senior member of George
Okay.
Latimer's staff.
Right.
Who attended at the request of Mike Kaplowitz after, and I'm sorry I didn't do this publicly in order to grandstand or make a political issue out of this, but after I reached out to Mike Kaplowitz in advance of his meeting with us to talk to him about how important this issue was to our town. He then brought in Aviva Meyer, who is on George Latimer's senior staff and is his right hand with regard to airport issues, to be on hand to answer the community's questions.
Okay, then I think she proved my point.
But listen,
I don't have anything else to
the
add.
bottom line is that I've emailed Mike now twice to set up a meeting. He hasn't responded. We need to set up a meeting. And honestly, I don't think we are in agreement, the town board. First of all, I'm going to follow up with the county executive about Kirsch. And I don't think this town board is in agreement. I think we'll have to talk about it at maybe another time. Maybe we'll have a joint meeting with the airport committee. But I think we have a fundamental disagreement, this town board, as far as how to approach this problem. I personally think we go at it alone. And I think other people think it's better to do it as a group. Now, that's fine, we could disagree, but I personally think that we have a unique problem here in Newcastle that didn't exist a few years ago. These other communities have had it for years, and I think we need to figure out what the problem is here so that it could be adequately addressed. Now, this past weekend, you know, if you look at A Peaceful Sky, you know, there was the first positive thing I read there in months, which was somebody said that the JetBlue flight, you know, came in higher, and it made a huge difference. Well, that's the type of stuff we got to figure out here, what's going on.
That's right.
Like, we're not going to, all of a sudden, they're not going to cut the leases have been signed, you know, I mean, and we could point fingers all day long, but it doesn't make a difference at this point. We need to figure out how we could fix this problem. And nobody's even saying, stop using runway 16. There might be things we can do to make it just better for the residents here. If it means coming in higher, I don't know what the answer is.
I think it's a
But
combination,
gotta
I think it's a
We had that
combination of
expert
things.
to tell
Some
us.
things,
We
it's a
had an
combination of
expert
things.
tell us.
Some are easier asks. For example,
But
the
we
one
have
you just
to know
pointed
that.
out, you're correct.
We need an
That's-
expert to
that's-
tell us that,
that's an
because we
easy
have to
ask,
figure
but
out what we could do.
I believe that you can't go at it alone because you don't, NIMBY Newcastle is not going to alone change George Latimer, our congressperson.
We're not saying
And
stop
that-
using,
and that was
we're not saying
the
stop
So
using
we-
runway
Gave
16.
us when he came in.
We're not saying stop using runway 16. We're
So there's
basically saying,
pieces that
like,
we-
there's things that maybe we could do, one section, just because, well, you can make a public comment too, if you want to come up. But
It's not school.
it's basically, Jeremy raises his hand too.
I routinely raise my hand.
He always raises his hand. But the thing is that there's things that these airplanes can do, and we need an expert to tell us what. This is not, it's not an NIMBY issue. I agree it's not, and it doesn't have to be phrased like an NIMBY issue. It has to be phrased, what can we do in Newcastle to make it better for us in Newcastle? And that doesn't mean
I think it's an
put
A
the
and B.
planes another runway. It means figure out what's causing the problem here and how can we make it better for people.
It's
So
part,
again, I
it's
mean, I
part
think-
local and part greater regional. It's a combination, but I think that's what.
So
it is.
So I
It's really
think
gonna
there are
continue.
differences of opinion about how to address the issue, but I think there's sincere commitment across the board to address the
course.
issue.
Yeah, of
And I
course.
do
I
think
agree.
that the logical next step, I'm sorry that you don't like being a part of the committee, but I do think the logical next step is to bring the committee in for.
Don't put those words in my mouth,
You
Ivy.
said-
It's not that I don't
You
like.
said you didn't think the committee was effective, so,
Well,
okay.
I'll tell you why I don't, because the same conversation that
You
you're
know, I'm
having.
sorry, Warren, can I finish my sentence,
Yeah, as long as
please?
you don't put words in my mouth, Ivy, which I really don't appreciate.
Okay, what you said earlier was you didn't think your participation in this committee was effective, and regardless of whether or not the committee is effective, we did empower this committee. We do have really committed and concerned residents on that committee, and I think a really good next step is to have a work session that's joint between our board and that committee to solution this.
And I think what you will find is the conversation that is happening within the committee is somewhat similar to what you're hearing here tonight, which is a group of committed lay people who care about the issue, who don't know how to identify the problem and ask for the specific help that's needed. And that is why I do not think the committee structure is helpful here. I think you need to get an expert loyal to the town to tell you what is going on and how to ask for help. And what Peter Kirsch said was, if you find out from that expert that the only solution is we can make it better for Newcastle but worse for somebody else, good luck, because he understands that that's going to be a problem.
Well, that's
But
what
it
I
is
was
not
saying.
clear,
That's
but it
precisely
is
the
not
point he
clear
told us to
that-
go with a county.
but it is not clear that that is the case. And that is why he told us to get an expert to find out whether or not there are solutions that can be win-win for everybody. And I don't think, frankly, the county, after what they did to us here, can be trusted with that anymore. I just don't. I think for $75,000.
But he has a good point,
It's not that
because to
trust is the
say,
wrong word. Trust is the wrong word because it comes across negative. It's that they have different interests. They
Right.
have different interests.
but it's a good point, if the follow-up is, well, the planes have to come in higher, and that's gonna make a big difference, that's gonna help everybody. If the answer is you need to move runway 16 from here over to Briarcliff, then obviously that's better for us and worse for another town. But if there is a solution that can help everybody, we need to find that.
Absolutely.
But I don't know if that, I mean, we will talk as a board, I tend to agree, and I don't put a negative implication on the word NIMBY, because I think those are the people most affected, and those are the people who have the most information often about what's happening, and I think it's important. NIMBYs are actually the most important people in every situation
I'm just gonna
like
say one
this.
thing when we're on the NIMBY topic, I'm sorry. I don't even think it's a NIMBY topic. Nobody's saying not in my backyard. It's more like, make my backyard a little more peaceful, please. Like, we're not basically saying not in my backyard, we're just trying to make it better for us.
I don't
You
think
know.
I don't think anyone disagrees with that, but the issue is perception, unfortunately, at times is reality. And if we just go at this solely as not Newcastle, you're not going to get the same results as trying to reach out. You can identify solely Newcastle issues, as we should, and a great example we just mentioned before is the height of the flight,
Yeah,
the height of the landing pattern.
I understand.
But there's a greater picture to work with other municipalities, because if part of the solution ultimately, and as Kirsch pointed out, is moving it over from town A to town B, it just creates the same scenario for the same people who are empowered to make change elsewhere, and it's no difference to a certain extent who that is.
I understand.
So if we come at them as just guys and gals who are just angry and disrespectful, and it's only about Newcastle, then we'll certainly lose. But even if we
Well,
get
we need
some
the
concessions,
information to
yes,
know.
yes, and this is one of the things that, whether you believe it's right or wrong, Warren, I was just lost you for a second. And whether you were upset, and that's a separate issue with Rob Fleischer, one of the things we discussed with him, because he is sitting on two boards, or committee and a board, was to get, we need specific asks, get what you can, give us the information to help us ask our questions and formulate our asks. So, that being said.
By the way, the height of the planes coming in may not be a reasonable solution for the towns closer to the airport, but it could be a very reasonable
They gotta
solution
land
for us.
somehow.
They have to land at
Yeah,
some point, they're low
Yeah,
anyway.
they're coming down, but they maybe could be up. Like, the point is, even our issue with our distance from the airport, there's different solutions for us in other
Boston, Mount
airports.
Pleasant, come on.
Oh, nice.
I'm
Jim.
being sarcastic.
Hi,
That's what-
I'm Jim Smith. I just want to say something about the data very specifically. I am deep in this data. I talk to Rob every day. I understand the data he's asking for from the county. By the way, the county has this data, right? This is their data, so it should be easier to get. But there's private data out there that I've been getting. The history of the stuff we need for this town to really look at the town issue is altitude, it's flight path history. It's not necessarily the stuff they're getting at the county level, which focuses on the number of planes, what time they're coming in, all that stuff's important as well. But the issue for the town, and it keeps coming up, is this is different than it was 4 years ago. The flight paths are different. And you start to look at this historic data, we need to get it and have a professional, compile it and do it, I agree, but it is from a town perspective. The flight paths are concentrated now, the flights are coming in lower than they used to, they're pivoting in a different way, and that's creating the problem. We need to prove that out with the data in a comprehensive way, but when you go to how do you fix that, it's not a NIMBY issue, because the way it used to work is the problem was spread out across a number of communities. Now it's concentrated on, I can tell you the exact houses that it goes over, time and time again. So that's the data that's a town perspective that we need to look at. And the solution doesn't have to be, this is just for Newcastle. This spreads the problem out. Maybe it's an altitude issue that they can, and this, if you look across the country, the same problem is happening in towns or communities all across the country in the last few years for different reasons. But the solutions there are the FAA does have control over how high they control the air. So the county controls the ground, so that's stuff we have to work with Executive Latimer about. They control the airport. They own, we own the airport. But in the air, that's the FAA. We're going to have to ultimately have a compelling case with data. We're going to have the full political support of the county executive in particular, but others up the congressional level. And that data case is something that the FAA can and has in other communities adjusted their approaches. They can adjust the approach, the path, the altitude it comes in. So I think it has to start with, with all due respect to the Airport Advisory Board and the data they're looking at or they're focusing on, they have a lot of different reasons to look at the data for different communities. I think we need to look at it for our town to really prove out that flight path issue. That, how have they changed? How have they been concentrated over the last 4 years? And when we see that, the picture is going to be worth 1,000 words. And then we have our case as a town. I think other towns have similar issues. We can work with them too. But ultimately I just see it as we have to start looking at the data from the town perspective.
Well, it's an issue we need to, it's a fundamental, threshold decision we got to decide on the best approach, And we obviously have some disagreements, but we're not going to
Jill,
resolve it
can you
tonight.
put on a work session agenda sometime coming up to have a meeting with Rob and the Airport Advisory
We gotta come up
Board
with a compromise.
Committee.
Committee? And then,
Assert that this is a dormant,
that's probably the time when we all need to sit down and figure out how we're gonna best
That we can
approach
collect
this.
data that helps
great.
everybody.
And also, don't you think we should also discuss in our next work session a follow-up letter to the county regarding the RFP?
That would be part of the same.
Same meeting, but I still think there's no reason why we can't continue
I
to
mean,
push on
I'm
that.
hoping that this meeting happens before we would be able to write this letter.
Well, we got to follow
In a
up,
work session.
I mean,
Yeah, and yes.
Can I just ask one follow-up question? Why is it that gathering data and informing ourselves as a town, which we don't have to advertise to the world that we're doing, is seen as going at it alone? Just getting knowledgeable about what the problem is. Why does that have to be seen as going?
Well, we're talking
I
about
don't
who's
think-
paying for the expert.
yeah, I don't think that's not what I'm saying. At least I don't think anyone's saying
No,
that.
okay, I just want to make sure I understand. 'cause
It's who's
I'm-
paying for the expert. We're trying to get Westchester County to pay for the expert.
Yeah, I mean,
We could pay for it, but, that's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money for us.
But being, right, I understand that, $75,000 is a lot of money, but why?
It's a lot of money.
But I guess my question is, it sounds like by pushing it in the RFP, we've already made a decision that we're abandoning asking the county for $75,000.
Yeah, well, I agree with that, by the way. I don't agree, let me clarify. I agree that I actually wrote myself a note. I'm gonna follow up with the county executive. Maybe it should be in the RP, but also we should ask the $75,000 for our expert as well. It doesn't have to be either or, it could be both. We can't get access to any of this money. We might as well use it for studies so that we can figure out the problem is. Why does it have to be either or? It could be both.
Yeah, I think we felt like including it in the RFP addendum would be sort of a little bit of a faster approach. So, sort of including it as a scope of work within a larger procurement may be more expeditious than trying to do a separate RFP process for just this expert consultant. But I think it's a good avenue to
We could-
pursue.
we could
There's no reason
ask.
why
We should
shouldn't.
do both.
We could ask, and maybe it's not 75,000, maybe it's
It was
30,000.
actually 80.
It was a lot.
Maybe it's
a lot.
35.
So you guys, as we move on in the agenda to the resolutions and the proposed actions, I can feel my fever spiking, and,
Are we done with the airport issue? It's a very important issue, but I just want to, I think we're done, right?
Yeah.
For now.
For tonight, yes, and it's
Yeah, we're not done. No, we're not
It's
done.
not, it's not personal to anybody. I mean, but I gotta tell you, the impact on people, when they have this over their house every 90 seconds, they are, you can take this from me or not, or discount it, talk to people in those areas. They are angry.
Lauren,
We
I
live in
that area.
these areas. We know.
I'm getting multiple, whether you're right, whether I don't know if someone gets X more than me or X less than me, but I certainly live in that area. I appreciate it. I don't think anyone here does it. I think everyone here appreciates it, 100%. And I think it's important that you, especially in your position, in terms of just being on the committee, whether you think it's effective or not, ask the questions. And whether individually or as a committee or via email, via coming in person, ask the questions. But you'd be surprised, evidently you are, that there's a lot more steps that are occurring and we've taken a lot more action than you believe or know. And it may not have gotten us to where we want to be, and maybe it won't ever get us to where we want to be, but we're certainly making the efforts to push this along and advocate to make sure that Newcastle is protected.
My surprise isn't that there are things happening where we kind of throw in what the county is doing. I'm not surprised by that. I just don't think it's the right way to go. And I think that, frankly, it's a disappointment that we're not getting relief to our residents faster. And I understand that things may be happening in an administrative process, but ultimately, I don't think that residents are gonna find that satisfactory. They want answers as to why this is happening, and they want our leaders pushed specifically to fix it. And if they continue to hear that we're stuck in some sort of RFP process that we have to fight to be included in, and it's, that is not gonna fly in this town. I
No
just
pun
don't think it
intended.
Is that intentional?
No, I don't think it
No,
was.
that was not intentional.
But now that you mention it,
You're gonna go with it.
You should leave
You're
on
gonna
that.
say it was intentional.
mic drop, okay.
Okay.
all right, so you guys, I know that we're at a break, I have no issues
Okay,
with
Jim,
anything else
real
on the
quick.
agenda, I'm gonna,
Just one quick. Jim wants
Public
to-
comment, I have two
Here's another
things,
public
real
comment.
quick, sorry, I mean,
Right,
it was
it's gonna be
public. One is switching gears, I got stopped in the street, someone said enough about the FAA, what about the FRA, the Railroad Administration? It's been 4 years, a little over 4 years since the accident at Valhalla, where we lost 2 residents, and there was a lot of attention drawn to our railroad
Yeah.
crossing by everyone up to the administrator of the Railroad Administration. We talked about a bridge, and there's been an enormous amount of federal and state funding that has focused on railroad crossings in every year since. So I was just wondering if there's any updates on
Well,
that.
I actually didn't read this from my supervisor's report, but I can actually read the paragraph. I did have a meeting, I had a very productive meeting with Lisa Hufflick on March 27. She's the Hudson Valley Regional Director for Senator Kristen Gillibrand. We discussed funding for a bridge over the railroad crossing on Roybrook Road and Sawmill River Park. We discussed funding for clean water sewers and discussed the Con Ed gas moratorium. So,
And we've also met with Pete Parkham to discuss this as well.
Right, we
and
did.
sent him.
And actually, I plan on attending and anybody else is welcome too, I plan on attending the Metropolitan Council meeting, which is down on, I think Beaver Street in Manhattan. And actually, it was Lisa's recommendation to attend that meeting because,
We need to
County
get on the
executive.
no-tip list.
well, county executive is a member, has a seat on that committee, being the county executive. And, so he's familiar with the ask, and, we really need to work that angle too. Because we've always been working, her point was, we've always been working the feds, because we need federal funding, and we've been working the state. But, the county executive has a seat on that council, and we really should be pushing that angle more. And Susan Spears, actually, this was the tie-in, because Susan Spear used to work for Senator
Gillibrand.
she used to work for Senator Gillibrand, and when we constantly wrote her letters, because the letters that I brought with me to the meeting were to Susan. And now Susan is working for the county
The
executive.
Director of Intergovernmental Affairs.
Right, so she's very familiar with the issue. So what we really need to do is push that angle more, because they're very familiar with it.
Okay.
But it's federal funding, and so we got to get on the state transportation improvement list, the TIP list.
Yep.
Because that's how we're going to get the appropriation. But,
Okay.
we're working on it, but it's tough, because it's money.
Thank you. Okay, the last was just the basketball court you mentioned. That's awesome. I'm very excited about that. The question came up, Jeremy, you took it on board as well, as whether it's going to be striped for pickleball.
I don't know if it's gonna be straight for pickleball. I do know that you can get, I learned this today, that you can get a pickleball net, if that's the proper term for it, I think it is a net, with straps that are the equivalent of stripes, and it can be put anywhere.
It's
They do that in
it's a
Bedford.
huge, yeah,
have one in
and it's a
Bridgewood.
huge thing for seniors. I think it'll utilize that facility a lot more than just basketball.
We reached out to Bedford already, when I say we, the superintendent of Parks and Recs, to Bedford to find out about their pickleball program, because the people that are actually doing our basketball court are the same exact people that did Bedford's, and they use theirs for pickleball. They have tournaments, they have programming for it. It's not just pickup games. They've actually really incorporated into their programming.
Great, thanks.
How long do you think it'll
Play your
take?
cards right, you might get sponsored,
Yeah,
the
it's unbelievable.
local pickleball.
Bye. On the fence.
Drafting the resolutions for the proposed actions, not just a review.
We done with public comment?
I think so.
Anyone else?
I'm not gonna run my resolutions.
All right,
Do you want to just hold it?
shall we move on to,
Yeah, let's start,
Yeah, go ahead.
resolutions.
all right.
Paula.
I'm not gonna read, I have like a very bad.
I move to approve the payment of claims amount of $269,466.92 listed on the summary pre-check writing report and detailed voucher report each prepared on April 9, 2019. Checks will be issued and mailed to each claimant listed on Wednesday, April 10th, 2019.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to accept the following monthly reports for March 2019. Town clerk, court clerk, developmental department, and receiver of taxes.
Second.
All in favor?
I move to authorize the hiring of Jose Racinos and the position of seasonal parks labor in the recreational parks department at a rate of $13 per hour with a start date of April 15th of this glorious year.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to accept the retirement of environmental coordinator Stephen Coleman effective April 26, 2019. The town would like to thank Steve for his 25 years of service.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's all say aye, really sad.
I move to authorize the
What if
Department
we
of
just- what if we
Public
said no?
Works to bid
We say
for
no.
exactly.
We say no?
2019 Millwood Water Treatment Plant chemicals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize Lieutenant Dumzer to attend the 2019 Visual Computer System User Conference on May 21st to 23rd, 2019, being held in Atlantic City, New Jersey. The total approximate cost, including registration, food, and lodging, is $1,102, which was included in the 2019 budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And $20 in tokens.
Yeah.
I move to authorize the extension of the existing contract for an additional period of up to 90 days, commencing on April 1st and expiring on July 1st of this year for Suez. Compensation shall be in accord with the following terms. The base monthly price for operations, $86,845.78. The supplemental monthly price for operations, $2,194.90. And the supplemental price for operations and maintenance, $480.48.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to renew the current cyber liability policy for an annual premium of $7,363. This is an increase of $282 over last year's premium of $7,081.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to approve overrun change order for contaminated soil disposal to ELQ Industries in connection with our downtown infrastructure project for the amount of overage not to exceed 3,375 tons of soil, excluding asphalt and concrete, for a sum not to exceed $337,500.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend contract prices with the Seneca Paving Making Incorporated for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extensions set forth below for 1 year effective June 6th of this year to June 6th of 2020. Reflectorized yellow and white epoxy pavement, marking paint, crosswalk and stop bar marking with reflectionized epoxy white pavement marking paint, and the other items listed below as well.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Too many, it's too hard to read. I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend the contract price with Bale Industries Incorporated for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extensions set forth below for 1 year, effective June 6th of this year to June 6th, 2020. And again, there's those items through 6C listed below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Keep going, Jeremy.
All right, I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend contract prices with Peckham Materials Corporation for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extension set forth below for 1 year. And again, the same June 6th, 2019 to June 6th, 2020. Items 1, oh, they're random, that's tough. 8, 9, 20, and 29 as reflected below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I'm done with it, it's too many. Your turn.
Okay. I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend contract prices with Putnam Materials Corporation for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extension set forth in the resolution for 1 year effective June 6, 2019 to June 6, 2020, all as set forth in the attached resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to extend contract prices with Wingdale Materials LLC for specific highway maintenance materials listed below at the contract price extension set forth below for 1 year effective June 6, 2019 to June 6, 2020, all as set forth in the resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the Department of Public Works to purchase water main materials from Schmitz Wholesale, Inc. with the requisition amount of $18,232.98 for the installation of the new water main on Allen Place. The items of purchase have secured contractual pricing under the DPW 2018-06 water maintenance materials bid, which would include 522 linear feet of cement lined pipe for $17,377.78, 1 tree for $460.90, and 3 trees with accessories for $392.70.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move to authorize the continued maintenance of the Horace Greeley's bronze statue to Steve Roy Art Restoration LLC of Hopewell Junction, New York, for a total cost of $1,320, which includes a site visit, travel, materials, labor, and rentals.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 I move to appoint Lori Stratton, Elise Orlando, and Christopher O'Brien to the EPIC Committee for a term of 2 years, effective April 9th of this year through April 8th of 2021.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I move to reappoint Phyllis Fulnari to the Beautification Advisory Board for a term of 3 years, effective April 10th of this year through April 9th of 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. I move to reappoint the following members to the Architectural Review Board for a term of 3 years, Stanley Wong and Sarah Dursa.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Jeremy, just before you read the next one,
Yeah.
this was previously approved. The problem was our procurement policy requires the town board to specifically approve the piggybacking contract,
Okay.
which my office has reviewed. Everything is good to go, so we just put in a new resolution to create a more complete record.
Okay,
So
so
that's the next two.
I move to adopt the following resolution authorizing the purchase of an unmarked 2019 Police Ford Fusion SE all-wheel drive. Now that it's unmarked, everyone's gonna know. We should have said that. Now therefore, be resolved, the town board of the town of Newcastle hereby
It's a
authorize.
Prius, it's not a Fusion.
Oh, that's- shh,
Right, pick 'em.
guys, you can't leave here. I'll let you go.
It's green, also it's green.
That's not being recorded. Authorize and approves the purchase of one unmarked 2019 Ford Fusion SC all-wheel drive vehicle for the purchase price of $29,168.48.
Leveraging the contract.
Now the
with
next
Commonwealth
Ooh,
of
we're on the second page.
Pennsylvania.
All right. Be it further resolved that the police chief is hereby authorized and directed to execute all pertinent documents and directed to take any and all steps necessary to effectuate the purpose of this resolution.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then again, I move to adopt the following resolution authorizing the purchase of two marked 2019 Police Ford Interceptor all-wheel drive vehicles. Be it further resolved, the police chief is hereby authorized and directed to execute all pertinent documents and directed to take any and all steps necessary to effectuate the purpose of this resolution for these 2019 Police Ford Interceptor all-wheel drive vehicles for a purchase price of $92,522.20.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Lisa, take us home.
I move to authorize the procurement of time and materials from NIC Systems Corporation for the upgrade of instrumentation at the Inningwood Road Pump Station at a cost not to exceed $17,000 per NIC quote number Q 1903-16-02 dated March 7, 2019. Funding for this expenditure will come out of the Millwood Water Treatment Plant operating budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is that it?
That's it.
Is there no add-on? Nothing?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in
Oh, wait,
favor?
wait, the policy,
The police?
Oh.
the policy.
The,
Police
Move to
violence.
accept the
Workplace-
revisions to the 2019 workplace violence policy to include
Prevention.
yes, prevention program
It's a
and
different policy.
procedures
All right.
manual,
As amended.
as amended.
We don't
as
talk
set
about the-
forth in the manual.
Violence policy, we need to talk about the prevention policy.
Can I get a second?
Oh, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Now motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.